All right, guys, we won't beat around the bush here. We know it's been a tough day with the inauguration, not only here in the United States, but around the world with the situation going on politically, economically, socially. But that's led me back to what I wanted to talk about now for a while, a couple historical figures, contemporary figures in this case, and going to talk about Ralph Nader and Noam Chomsky and why they are great Americans. First with Mr. Ralph Nader. He's been a consumer advocate, an attorney. He's ran for president. He's been involved his whole life, which is about 80 years now, in upholding rights. And what does that all entail? Well, he's been a big supporter of civics, meaning that people have to be politically involved, politically aware, educated. They have to speak out as part of the process of being a citizen. And with that, he's been a tremendous advocate of legal justice. He's the attorney in the best sense, meaning he's using and trying to support the law to protect the most vulnerable, whether that is for environmental protection, whether that's consumer safety, whether that's workplace safety, whether that's making sure that the corporations and lobbyists and oligarchs aren't making all the rules and paying all the lobbyists to write all the laws. He's also been, with hand in hand with that, he's been a big supporter of equality, making sure that the, quote, little man, little woman, has as much access to the law, to rights, as the, quote, big boys do. And he's also been so encouraging about engagement, always reaching out, speaking, networking, urging people, writing blogs, writing books, creating groups, supporting groups, trying to get more and more people engaged in the political process. And, more than ever, the millennials, I think they have great values. But just like every other section of the society, we all need to get more involved, more engaged. I guess I was hoping for a little bit more with this election, but I can't blame people from tuning out as well, because with the two-party system, the choices seem so narrow, but it's on each of us to do our research network and support the politicians that are out there that want to do good things, but just aren't in the media as much. And overall, for Mr. Nader, he's always, I grouped these together, emphasized, kind of summing up everything I've been talking about, the personal ethics, responsibility, we have to take ownership. You can't rely on some kind of system, some kind of parties, some kind of, can't rely on the politicians in Washington really to make the rules in our interests, because their ear is attuned to the corporations and not to the individual people. So that kind of sums up his leadership and message, in my opinion. And now to Mr. Noam Chomsky, who shares a lot of similarities as Mr. Nader, but Noam's been in academia his whole life. And let's start out by talking about him. He is somebody that's not afraid to stand up and say, America is about empire. Yes, we're a republic, but as so many great nations, as it happens to them, they become overextended, kind of bloated with their own self-importance and wealth. And we're involved in empire, military bases throughout the world, whether it's treaties, whether it's supporting dictators, what have you. Yes, the United States has done a lot of good things, but we have to be more self-critical and talk about our empire. And leading right into that is critical analysis. Obviously, Noam has a very expansive mind, breadth of knowledge, and he's able to draw on multiple areas of study to be very specific and very detailed in his analysis. Most of us don't have that ability, but Noam draws on it to be very articulate and specific with his critiques. Noam is probably, he describes himself, I believe still, as an anarcho-syndicalist. Now, all these words sound kind of funny, weird in our system because we've kind of made them, given them those connotations. But basically, it means that he supports unions. He supports, I think you can sum it up as local levels of control, more worker control. Now, we're not trying to get some panacea, and Noam doesn't have all the answers, but he's more about local control, supporting unions, supporting workers, supporting, again, just like Mr. Nader, equality, better distribution, more empowerment of more people in our society for decision making, for having access to laws, rules, and just for improved society. And with that, I put this thing down as history versus rhetoric. Part of Noam's analysis as well is very detailed. He's a linguist by training, very well respected in the field of linguistics, and made some major theories in that area as well. But basically dealing with what is the rhetoric and the myths that we have, superstitions about our country, or kind of resting on our laurels, what have you, propaganda versus what is the real history. I think it's fairly easy to see in everyday media and print, TV, what have you, that we rely on a lot of superstitions, a lot of old concepts or rhetoric about, freedom and society and the American dream and opportunity, what have you, that aren't there as much as they should have been according to the founding documents. So that's an important area that Mr. Chomsky is always analyzing. And I just basically called it socio-humane intellect. Intellectual. He uses his knowledge to further the progress of individual people, of society, that the powers at B need to be held to a higher standard and in the interest of everyone, and not in the United States, but worldwide. And obviously, any system is going to be flawed, but we need to be more self-critical and more aware and have the ability to criticize ourselves and have the ability to understand our so-called enemies or the other interested parties in this one world we share. So with that, I was just going to close with three things. I consider these two gentlemen to be visionaries. Yes, some might criticize them maybe being too idealistic, too many criticisms, or too critical, what have you. But being a visionary means you are ahead of your time. You're going to hold everyone in your society to a higher standard. Secondly, I believe them to be supreme patriots because they take the critical perspective, take the perspective of justice for all, and try to apply that. And try to go back to the founding documents about being inclusive and taking hard stances, whether it's against political interests, economic interests, military interests, so be it. That is what I consider true patriotism versus just empty rhetoric that I find in a lot of other politicians or so-called quote-unquote leaders. And just the third point is just humane. Having a focus on humanity for the greater good, justice, equality, freedom for all, in the true sense, not an empty sense. So I hope you appreciate that. Best wishes for you in 2017. Let's keep working together to make a better world. Thanks, guys. Clumsy Dad.